Trigger warning, I'm talking about miscarriages. Trigger warning, I'm talking about all things autonomy and stripping women's rights and all of that. I'm on team let the birth rate plummet to hell for so many different reasons. But the way these states are stripping women's autonomy is not annoying, it's enraging. That's the word I was searching for. It's enraging. Because not all pregnancies are going to have a viable fetus that grows and continues to grow and flourishes and then comes out of the birth canal without any issues. Sometimes women get pregnant and the fetus is unviable. This woman was talking about how she died in a hospital due to a miscarriage because the people at the hospital wouldn't get rid of the unviable fetus from her body. They made this woman into a walking tomb. The fetus didn't have a heartbeat, but they still, because this is a forced birther state and these people don't have any kind of medical discernment, wouldn't take the unviable fetus out of her body. Why? This is the thing. When you strip the rights of women and not allow them to make medical decisions for their bodies with a doctor, then you have things like this, like women bleeding out in parking lots, women dying of sepsis because an unviable fetus was left in her body. Those fetuses start getting attacked because it's just this thing that the body doesn't recognize anymore because it's not alive. And doctors should be able to just take it out. But what these forced birther laws are doing, it's stripping away common sense and it's running away physicians that actually know how to do these procedures. So there's no real difference between a termination, regardless of if it's a termination because a woman simply didn't want the fetus anymore, or a termination because the woman has to get this unviable fetus out. The same doctor would do the same thing. But when you force these people to run away because of lawsuits and threats of fines and threats of jail time, you have situations where there are no doctors, where labor and delivery offices are closing. So women are going to have, even women that want to have babies are going to have less options. They're going to be less safe because of these forced birther laws. I'm going to play this woman's video, but there's no reason why a sensible doctor before Roe v. Wade fell, would not have allowed a woman to die because of a miscarriage. If they know that the fetus doesn't have a heartbeat, why are you making a woman into a walking tomb?
I died in the hospital during a miscarriage because the doctors didn't know what to do with me because of the laws that were passed in Texas. I had been to the OB, found out that the baby didn't have a heartbeat and that I was going to miscarry obviously at some point. So a few days later, I woke up and I was in a pile of blood in my bed, and my partner at the time took me to the emergency room. When we got there, I was questioned multiple times about whether or not I even knew if I was pregnant, but I was bleeding through not only the towel, not just a hand towel, a towel in my pants and through my pants. She kept coming in and saying, I'm sorry, they just don't know what to do with you, which was very confusing to me considering I knew that I needed a D&C. That was the obvious choice, and I didn't understand why it wasn't happening because I wasn't thinking about all the laws that had just been passed that were preventing them from making that decision, even though it was turning into a medical emergency. No one had even checked to see how much blood I had lost. Unfortunately, when they gave me the morphine, it sent me into cardiac arrest because of how much blood I had lost, and I had to be resuscitated. Only after I was resuscitated were they willing to then rush me to an emergency D&C. When they took me in there, I had to sign all sorts of paperwork saying that if they needed to while I was in surgery, that they could give me that blood transfusion. I ended up in the ICU for a few days while they watched my blood levels. And again, all of this due to the fact that they were afraid to make those decisions because of the laws that have been passed in Texas. So I died. And there are plenty of women who don't get resuscitated.
After the fall of Roe v. Wade, these forced birther states tried to make it so that women and girls, no matter what, couldn't have access to reproductive rights. They couldn't terminate a pregnancy, whether they wanted the pregnancy or not, whether their health is in jeopardy or not in some of these states, whether they were raped or not, it doesn't matter. Well, there were still ways that women could access these pills, these termination pills, but some of these forced birther states are trying to shut off all access. It's not that they just care about the procedure, they want to make sure women don't have any kind of option, women and girls. So it says, Texas bill allowing private citizens to sue over termination pills clears legislature. So they're trying to make it so that people like let's say Sally was pregnant and Sally didn't want to be pregnant anymore. So Sally ordered some termination pills. Well, Jeff found out about it. So Jeff can sue whoever sent the termination pills. Jeff is not suing Sally directly. Jeff is suing whoever sent the pills. That's the type of law they're trying to do. They're trying to do these type of bounty laws, but this is kind of in alignment with Comstock laws. I don't know if y'all remember Comstock laws. The Comstock laws are no more, but they were formed with the Comstock Act of 1873. It was a series of statutes that prohibit the mailing of, and these are the words, obscene, filthy, and vile materials, and items intended to produce termination or contraception. So back in the day, women couldn't even have access to contraception. They couldn't terminate and they couldn't have access to contraception. So women didn't have access to anything where they could, control their own fertility, control their own family planning because of this man named Anthony Comstock. He was extra Christian-y, and his mother died during childbirth. To him, she died, but that meant that mom was extra martyr, like a saint, and all women should be mothers, is basically what Anthony Comstock says. He was an extra right-winger. This was 1873, and the Comstock laws basically held up for almost 100 years. That's the reason why women didn't have access to contraception and birth control for nearly 100, until like the 60s and 70s. And even back in the 60s and 70s, women had to get permission from their husband or some man. The Comstock laws were specifically about things being mailed. If someone mailed you some materials about birth control or termination, you could get federally charged. Women who were providers of these types of services went to jail because of Comstock laws. So they are trying to bring these laws back. That's basically, they are tippy-toeing back to a place where you can just restrict women's rights all over the place. They want to restrict the women's rights in person in the state, and they want to make sure that you don't have access any kind of space. The Texas Senate on Wednesday evening approved a bill that would allow private citizens to sue anyone who manufactures, distributes, mails, or provides termination medication to or from Texas. Successful plaintiffs would be awarded at least $100,000 in damages. If the plaintiff is not directly related to the fetus, they would only be entitled to 10% and would have to give the remaining money to a charity of their choosing. Women taking termination pills would not be eligible to be sued under the bill, nor would women who take them after miscarriages. The Senate voted 17-8 to pass House Bill 7, which now heads to Governor Greg Abbott's desk. Similar legislation sailed through the Senate during this year's regular legislative session, but died on the House floor. So that is what they're doing. It's not that they're suing the woman, they're suing the person that provides the pills to the woman. So that's going on in Texas. Let's move over to South Carolina. South Carolina lawmakers are pushing through Senate Bill 323. It's called the Unborn Child Protection Act. This will remove rape, incest, and fetal anomalies from the termination exceptions. So even if the fetus is unviable, or even if it becomes a baby, comes out of the birth canal and is going to die soon after, they're going to make these women carry these babies to term. It doesn't matter if they are a victim of rape or a victim of incest. It does not matter. They do not want these women or girls sometimes to have any rights or autonomy. It says this is the most extreme termination ban proposed in SC in South Carolina to date. Please take action and contact your representatives. Why would you take these exceptions away? They're already in place. Why would you say that, like, this is just cruelty? Why are you making women and girls carry fetuses that have fatal fetal anomalies? Like, what is the point in that outside of cruelty being the point? Do not have babies right now in these forced birther states, because even if you are married and you're having a child of your own free will and all of that, what if something happens to you? What if you are about to die? What if this fetus is not forming correctly and is suffering inside of you, or it will suffer like for as long as it comes out? Why would you have a baby in a place like this? Another woman says, calling on all the good women and men of South Carolina to come to the South Carolina State House on October 1st for the 9:30 a.m. hearing on the very dangerous and unconstitutional Senate Bill 323. And then you got this handmaid that says, if not Handmaid's Tale, why Handmaid's Tale shaped? This is the Handmaid's Tale. They are pushing and pushing and pushing towards a theocracy where women have no rights. Stinson Carter says, under SB 323, if your minor daughter were to be raped and impregnated and you took her out of the state for a termination, you will go to jail for up to 30 years. These three men did this, and here are their phone numbers. So we got Senator Richard J. Cash. You can look at the screen yourself, Senator Richard J. Cash. You have Senator Billy Garrett. You have to look at the screen. You see Senator Billy Garrett. And then finally, you have Senator Rex Rice. If you want to contact your senators and you're in South Carolina, that is their information. So go ahead and make your voices heard, even if it probably doesn't matter, but still make your voices heard.